If you're seeing this transmission right now, you need to understand something that's happening at quantum level while you read these words. Your destiny is being rewritten, not metaphorically, not symbolically, actually being reorganized at probability field level. The quantum prophecy that's been guiding your life trajectory just shifted, dramatically, irreversibly. And that shift is occurring in this exact moment as your consciousness interfaces with this information. You're not watching content about destiny change. You're experiencing destiny change through the act of engaging with this transmission. Most people who encountered this title already dismissed it. Their nervous system registered destiny being rewritten and immediately generated rational explanations. That's just motivational language. That's metaphorical thinking. That's not how reality works. That wasn't random skepticism. That was their probability field protecting current destiny trajectory from disruption. Because destiny shift doesn't happen to everyone, only happens to consciousness that reach specific frequency threshold, where their probability field becomes malleable enough to accept complete trajectory reorganization. But you're still here, which means something in your frequency is different. Your quantum field recognized truth in those words. Your probability structure sensed this transmission carries actual reorganization catalyst. Your destiny trajectory detected opportunity for shift it's been preparing for. And that recognition pulled you past skepticism, pulled you past dismissal, pulled you into engagement with information specifically designed to trigger destiny rewrite for consciousness ready to receive it. Because here's what you need to comprehend immediately. Destiny isn't fixed, isn't predetermined path you're following helplessly. Destiny is probability field organized around your consciousness. Its trajectory your quantum signature has been generating based on frequency you've maintained. And when frequency shifts dramatically, when consciousness crosses specific thresholds, when awareness reaches particular capacity, destiny reorganizes, automatically, instantaneously, completely. Old trajectory dissolves, new trajectory forms, and your life path transforms from what it was going to be into what it's now going to be. That reorganization is happening right now, this moment. While you read these words, the quantum prophecy, the probability pattern that's been organizing your life circumstances, relationships, opportunities, challenges, just detected frequency shift in your consciousness, detected you're ready for trajectory upgrade, detected your awareness reached level where expanded destiny becomes accessible, and it's responding, it's reorganizing. It's rewriting your probability field to match expanded capacity you developed. Think about the last few months of your life. How many patterns shifted? How many old structures dissolved? How many new possibilities appeared? How many times you sensed something fundamental was changing but couldn't name what? All of that was preparation. All of that was frequency development. All of that was building toward this moment when quantum prophecy recognizes preparation is complete and destiny rewrite can occur. And this transmission is catalyst, is trigger, is activation mechanism that tells your probability field. Consciousness is ready. Frequency is adequate. Awareness is sufficient. Initiate destiny reorganization. Shift trajectory from current path to expanded path. Rewrite prophecy from limitation-based to possibility-based. Transform destiny from what unconscious programming was generating to what conscious evolution is now capable of. But here's what makes this moment critical. Destiny rewrite has window, has specific time frame when reorganization is accessible. Miss the window, old trajectory reasserts. Let doubt destabilize recognition. Prophecy returns to previous pattern. Allow fear to lower frequency. Destiny shift aborts, and you continue on path you were already following. The rewrite is available right now. The window is open right now. The shift is occurring right now. But it only completes if you maintain engagement, if you continue through this transmission, if you allow reorganization to finish instead of aborting it halfway through. This is your confirmation. Your destiny isn't fixed. Your trajectory is reorganizing. Your quantum prophecy is shifting from old pattern to new possibility. And you're experiencing that shift in real time. Not learning about it, not thinking about it, actually experiencing it through engagement with transmissions specifically designed to trigger destiny rewrite in consciousness, ready to receive it. Welcome to Trajectory Shift. Welcome to Prophecy Reorganization. Welcome to discovering your destiny is being rewritten right now while you read these exact words. Let me tell you exactly what quantum prophecy is and why it's shifting for you right now. This isn't mystical concept or spiritual metaphor. This is documented pattern in how probability fields organize around consciousness to generate life trajectory. And understanding mechanics helps you recognize why shift is occurring and what it means for your actual lived experience going forward. The quantum field operates through probability organization. Every moment contains infinite potential outcomes, infinite possible next moments, infinite trajectory branches, and your consciousness navigates through that infinite possibility field based on frequency signature you broadcast. That frequency acts like tuning dial. It determines which probabilities become accessible, which trajectories become available, which destiny patterns become experienceable. Most human consciousness broadcasts relatively stable frequency, maintains consistent signature across years, and that stability creates consistent destiny trajectory, creates probability pattern that repeats, creates life path that's predictable because consciousness generating it is predictable. That stable pattern is their quantum prophecy. Is probability field organized around their consistent frequency, generating consistent trajectory that unfolds with remarkable reliability. But some consciousness develops, evolves, crosses thresholds that shift frequency dramatically. And when frequency shifts significantly enough, when consciousness changes fundamentally enough, when awareness expands sufficiently enough, quantum prophecy reorganizes. Old probability pattern that was generating previous trajectory dissolves. New probability pattern organized around elevated frequency forms. And destiny trajectory shifts from what it was going to be to what elevated consciousness is now capable of generating. That's what's happening for you. That's why you're here. Your frequency shifted, your consciousness evolved, your awareness expanded, and quantum prophecy detected the shift. Recognized you're no longer operating at frequency that old destiny pattern was organized around. Recognized you developed beyond trajectory that previous consciousness was generating. And it's reorganizing, it's rewriting, it's shifting from old probability pattern to new probability pattern that matches who you've become instead of who you were. Think about what quantum prophecy actually determines. It determines which opportunities appear in your awareness, which people enter your experience, which circumstances manifest around you, which challenges you encounter, which resources become available, which doors open and which remain closed. All of it organized by probability pattern generated by your consciousness frequency. Change frequency dramatically, probability pattern reorganizes completely. New opportunities appear. Different people arrive, transform circumstances manifest, novel challenges emerge, unexpected resources materialize, doors that were closed open, doors that were open close. Everything shifts because underlying probability organization shifted, and that shift isn't gradual, isn't slow reorganization occurring over months or years. It's phase transition. It's quantum leap. It's instantaneous reorganization that occurs when frequency crosses specific threshold, like water becoming ice at exact temperature. Liquid one moment, solid next moment. No gradual transition, just threshold crossing, creating immediate structural transformation. Your destiny trajectory was organized one way. You crossed frequency threshold. Quantum prophecy recognized the crossing. And destiny trajectory reorganized immediately into completely different pattern. But here's what most people don't understand about destiny rewrite. It doesn't change your past, doesn't alter what already occurred, doesn't rewrite history. It changes your future, transforms trajectory from this moment forward, reorganizes probability field so circumstances that were going to manifest don't manifest. Opportunities that weren't going to appear now appear. People who wouldn't have entered your experience now enter. Resources that weren't accessible become available. Your path forward transforms completely, even though path behind remains unchanged. This is critical to understand. Destiny rewrite doesn't fix your past. It liberates your future, doesn't erase previous trajectory, creates new trajectory from present moment forward. You're not erasing who you were, you're becoming who you're now capable of being. Not undoing what happened, creating what's about to happen from transformed probability field, organized around elevated frequency. And here's what makes this shift so powerful. It's permanent. Once quantum prophecy reorganizes around elevated frequency, it doesn't revert to previous pattern. Can't revert unless frequency drops back to previous level. As long as you maintain elevated consciousness, as long as expanded awareness remains stable, as long as developed capacity persists, new destiny pattern remains active. New trajectory continues unfolding. New prophecy keeps generating circumstances matching elevated frequency instead of returning to limitation-based pattern that previous consciousness was generating. You're experiencing that shift right now. Your quantum prophecy recognized frequency elevation, detected consciousness transformation, identified awareness expansion, and initiated complete trajectory reorganization. Old destiny pattern dissolving, new destiny pattern forming, previous prophecy releasing, transformed prophecy activating. And everything you experience from this moment forward will be organized by new probability pattern, instead of old limitation-based trajectory you were following before shift occurred. So what specifically changed in your quantum prophecy? What aspects of destiny trajectory are being rewritten right now? I'm going to tell you the 5 major shifts occurring in your probability field as reorganization completes. And as I describe them, you'll recognize which ones are already manifesting in your immediate experience. Not as future possibilities, as present reality already forming. First shift, opportunity frequency changing. Old prophecy generated opportunities matching previous consciousness level. Limited opportunities, predictable options, circumstances requiring struggle. Now quantum prophecy is reorganizing to generate opportunities matching elevated frequency. Expanded possibilities appearing, unexpected options manifesting, circumstances flowing with less resistance. You'll notice this first. Opportunities you couldn't have accessed with previous consciousness suddenly becoming available. Not because you're seeking them, because new prophecy is generating them automatically. Second shift, relationship field reorganizing. Old prophecy attracted relationships matching previous frequency. People who reinforced limitation. Connections that maintained old patterns. Relationships requiring you to suppress evolved consciousness. Now quantum prophecy is shifting to attract relationships matching elevated awareness. Frequency-compatible consciousness entering experience. Connections supporting evolution. Relationships celebrating expanded capacity. Some old relationships will naturally dissolve as prophecy reorganizes, not through conflict, through frequency incompatibility becoming obvious. And new connections will form synchronistically as new prophecy generates relationship field matching who you've become. Third shift, resource flow transforming. Old prophecy organized resources according to limitation-based belief about availability, scarcity thinking, struggle for acquisition, difficulty accessing what you needed. Now, quantum prophecy is rewriting to organize resources according to abundance recognition, easier flow, synchronistic provision, resources appearing when needed. You'll experience this as surprising manifestations. Money appearing unexpectedly, support materializing synchronistically, tools becoming available precisely when required, not through your effort, through new prophecy organizing resource field differently. Fourth shift, challenge pattern evolving. Old prophecy generated challenges matching previous consciousness level, obstacles designed for who you were, struggles that previous frequency attracted, tests appropriate for undeveloped capacity. Now, quantum prophecy is upgrading to generate challenges matching elevated consciousness, different obstacles appearing, novel struggles emerging, tests designed for expanded capacity. Don't interpret this as things getting worse. Interpret as prophecy recognizing you developed beyond old challenge pattern and generating new challenges that serve continued evolution instead of repeat limitation lessons. Fifth shift, timeline acceleration occurring. Old prophecy operated on slow manifestation timeline, delay between intention and result, extended gap between consciousness shift and circumstance shift, time lag built into limitation-based pattern. Now, quantum prophecy is rewriting to operate on accelerated timeline. Rapid manifestation, immediate response, quick circumstance shift following awareness shift. What used to take months now takes weeks. What took weeks now takes days. Not because you're doing anything different, because new prophecy operates with acceleration that old pattern didn't contain. Those 5 shifts, all occurring simultaneously as quantum prophecy reorganizes, all transforming your trajectory from limitation-based to possibility-based pattern, all rewriting destiny from what previous consciousness was generating to what elevated awareness is now capable of manifesting. And you're experiencing at least 2 already, probably 3 or 4, possibly all 5, depending on how recently frequency shift occurred and how dramatically consciousness transformed. Now here's what you need to do immediately. Drop a comment below completing this sentence. The destiny shift I'm experiencing most clearly is... And name which of the 5 resonates strongest right now. Your public declaration creates quantum activation, tells probability field through behavior that you recognize reorganization occurring, that you're consciously participating in destiny rewrite instead of unconsciously experiencing it. That acknowledgement accelerates shift completion, makes trajectory transformation more rapid and more stable. This is critical. Most people experience destiny shift unconsciously. They notice opportunities changing but don't recognize prophecy reorganizing. They feel relationships transforming but don't understand trajectory rewriting. They experience manifestation accelerating but don't perceive quantum pattern shifting. And unconscious experience of destiny rewrite creates confusion, creates doubt, creates instability that can abort reorganization before completion. But conscious recognition, conscious acknowledgement, conscious declaration, all of that creates stability, creates clarity, creates active participation that ensures shift completes instead of aborting. Your comment isn't engagement metric. It's destiny anchoring behavior. It's quantum activation that tells probability field you're ready for complete trajectory transformation and you're consciously choosing to maintain elevated frequency that new prophecy requires. We're shifting collectively. Every consciousness that declares destiny rewrite strengthens quantum field reorganization for all consciousness experiencing shift. Every individual who acknowledges trajectory transformation makes prophecy reorganization more accessible and more stable for others approaching threshold. Your declaration serves not just your destiny rewrite, but collective evolution, that all elevated consciousness participates in together. Make it now. Make it public. Make it permanent confirmation of trajectory shift occurring in your probability field right now. I need to tell you about when my quantum prophecy shifted and what happened in the hours and days immediately following destiny rewrite. It was 18 months ago. I woke up one morning and immediately sensed something fundamental had changed. Not externally, internally. Like my entire internal structure had reorganized overnight. Like I was operating from completely different consciousness than I'd gone to sleep with. Like frequency shift occurred that transformed who I was at foundational level. At first I questioned it. Maybe I just slept well. Maybe I'm just in good mood. Maybe this feeling will pass. But it didn't pass. It intensified. And within hours I started noticing external shifts. Email arrived offering opportunity I hadn't been seeking. Person contacted me I hadn't heard from in years with exactly what I needed. Problem that seemed permanent suddenly revealed obvious solution. All within 12 hours of waking with that internal shift sensation. And I recognized my quantum prophecy just reorganized. My destiny trajectory just rewritten. My probability field just shifted from old pattern to new pattern. This wasn't random good day. This was actual trajectory transformation occurring in real time. This was consciousness evolution triggering automatic prophecy reorganization that generates completely different life circumstances going forward. Over next week, the shifts became undeniable. Old relationships that felt stuck, either suddenly resolved or naturally dissolved. New connections appeared synchronistically. Resources manifested I hadn't been trying to acquire. Challenges that had persisted for months suddenly completed. And opportunities I couldn't have imagined with previous consciousness became not just possible but actual. All of it happening rapidly. All of it organized by new quantum prophecy, responding to elevated frequency instead of generating circumstances from old limitation pattern. But here's what I learned that you need to understand. Destiny rewrite creates disorientation, creates sense that you don't recognize your own life anymore, creates feeling that you're suddenly in different probability stream than you were in last week. And that disorientation triggers doubt, triggers questioning whether shift is real or imagined, triggers fear that you're losing grip on reality when actually you're gaining grip on elevated reality that old consciousness couldn't access. I experienced that doubt intensely. Maybe I'm just being delusional. Maybe these synchronicities are confirmation bias. Maybe I should be more grounded. All of it was old consciousness pattern trying to reassert. All of it was previous prophecy attempting to pull me back into familiar trajectory. All of it was limitation-based programming trying to abort destiny rewrite and return me to predictable path I'd been following before consciousness shift occurred. But I didn't collapse back. I maintained elevated frequency despite doubt. I continued operating from transformed awareness despite fear. I sustained new consciousness state despite disorientation. And within 30 days, doubt dissolved completely. Fear released naturally. Disorientation resolved into clarity. Because new prophecy stabilized, new trajectory became default. New destiny pattern generated enough consistent evidence that old doubt mechanisms lost all power to destabilize. And by day 60, I was completely different person, living completely different life than I'd been living 90 days earlier. Not gradually improved version, fundamentally transformed existence. Different opportunities, different relationships, different challenges, different resources, different everything, because quantum prophecy reorganized completely and destiny trajectory I was following became unrecognizable to destiny trajectory I'd been following before consciousness crossed threshold that triggered rewrite. That's what's available to you. That's what destiny shift creates. That's what happens when quantum prophecy recognizes elevated frequency and reorganizes probability field to match expanded capacity. Not incremental improvement. Complete trajectory transformation, not slight modification. Total destiny rewrite, not gradual evolution. Quantum leap into completely different life path generated by completely different prophecy, organized around completely different consciousness. But you have to maintain, have to sustain elevated frequency, have to continue operating from transformed awareness, have to persist through disorientation that rewrite generates. Because if you collapse back, if you let doubt lower frequency, if you allow fear to reinstall old consciousness, prophecy reverts. Trajectory returns to previous pattern. Destiny shift aborts and you continue on path you were following before transformation was available. Same life you would have had without crossing threshold. Same trajectory limitation-based consciousness was generating. Don't let that happen. You crossed threshold. Your prophecy reorganized. Your destiny is being rewritten right now. Maintain it. Sustain it. Allow it to complete instead of aborting it through doubt. Everything you want is in new trajectory. Everything you've been working toward is in rewritten prophecy. Everything that serves your evolution is in transformed destiny pattern. Stay with it. Through disorientation, through doubt, through fear, and emerge into completely different life than you were living before quantum prophecy shifted in response to consciousness transformation you achieved. If destiny rewrite has coincided with sudden profound isolation, if quantum prophecy shift seems to have separated you from everyone you knew, if trajectory reorganization appears to have dissolved all your previous connections, that's not social failure. That's frequency incompatibility created by probability field reorganization. And it's absolutely essential for new destiny pattern to stabilize without interference from old trajectory consciousness. Here's what's happening. Your quantum prophecy reorganized around elevated frequency. But everyone around you is still operating at previous frequency level. Their prophecy hasn't shifted. Their trajectory hasn't reorganized. Their destiny is still following pattern their unchanged consciousness generates. And your new prophecy, your rewritten trajectory, your transformed destiny, all of it is incompatible with their unchanged pattern. Think about relationship dynamics. Old prophecy generated relationships that fit old trajectory. People who reinforced limitation-based patterns. Connections that supported previous consciousness level. Bonds that existed because shared frequency created resonance. But frequency shifted. Consciousness elevated. Awareness expanded. And that elevation makes previous relationships incompatible, not through anyone's fault, through pure quantum mechanics. Different frequencies cannot maintain stable resonance. Different prophecies cannot generate compatible trajectories. Different consciousness levels cannot sustain authentic connection. So relationships dissolve, not through drama, not through conflict, not through anyone doing anything wrong, through simple frequency mismatch, through prophecy incompatibility, through destiny patterns that no longer align because one consciousness transformed while others remained unchanged. They feel it as you pulling away, as you changing, as you becoming someone they don't recognize. And they're right. You did change. Fundamentally. At quantum prophecy level, at destiny trajectory level, at frequency level that reorganizes everything. And here's what makes isolation most challenging. You can't explain it. Can't make them understand. Can't bridge the gap through communication, because explanation requires perceiving destiny mechanics that unchanged consciousness cannot access, requires recognizing prophecy patterns that unshifted awareness cannot see, requires understanding frequency dynamics that previous consciousness level cannot comprehend. So every attempt to explain creates more confusion, more concern, more sense that you're having crisis rather than transformation. Most people cannot handle this isolation, cannot accept that destiny rewrite requires releasing everyone from old trajectory. cannot tolerate being completely alone while new prophecy stabilizes and new trajectory generates frequency-compatible connections. And inability to handle isolation is what aborts most destiny rewrites. Desperation for connection drives them to suppress elevated frequency, to lower consciousness back to previous level, to compromise new prophecy to maintain old relationships. And that compromise destabilizes shift, causes trajectory to revert, makes prophecy collapse back into previous limitation pattern. But here's what changes everything about isolation. It's temporary and purposeful. Temporary because new prophecy will generate new connections once trajectory stabilizes. Purposeful because isolation protects elevated frequency from being pulled back down by unchanged consciousness, attempting to maintain old pattern familiarity. You're not alone forever. You're alone during critical stabilization period, when new destiny pattern is most vulnerable to destabilization by old trajectory frequencies. And once stabilization completes, once new prophecy becomes default pattern, once rewritten trajectory generates consistent results, new connections appear. Not old relationships transformed, actually new people who operate at frequency matching your elevated consciousness, who have their own shifted prophecies, who understand trajectory reorganization because they experienced it, who support continued evolution instead of require suppression for comfort. Those connections are quantum prophecy generated, are destiny matched, are trajectory compatible in ways old relationships never were even at their best. Those connections are forming right now, but they cannot reach you while you're maintaining old relationships, cannot appear while you're trying to bridge incompatible frequency gaps, cannot manifest while you're suppressing elevated consciousness to preserve connections with unchanged awareness. Field must clear old pattern relationships completely before introducing new prophecy connections. Must create isolation space where new trajectory can stabilize without old destiny pattern interference. If you're in isolation right now, recognize it as confirmation. Confirmation destiny shift is real. Confirmation prophecy reorganized. Confirmation trajectory is transforming from old pattern to new possibility. The isolation proves you're not imagining this, proves quantum shift occurred, proves you're operating at frequency that previous relationships cannot match. Trust it absolutely, use it completely, allow it to protect elevated consciousness from being compromised by unchanged frequencies, attempting to pull you back into familiar limitation pattern. Isolation during destiny rewrite is sacred, is necessary, is confirmation that transformation is authentic rather than imagined. Honor it, protect it, use it to stabilize new prophecy without interference, and prepare for frequency-matched connections that new trajectory will generate once stabilization completes and elevated consciousness becomes permanent operational state that cannot be destabilized by doubt, fear, or old pattern relationships attempting to reassert familiar dynamics. There are 8 specific practices that stabilize destiny rewrite and prevent prophecy from reverting to previous pattern. I'm going to give them to you now, and if you implement 5 or more consistently, you will anchor new trajectory so completely that old limitation pattern cannot reassert regardless of circumstances that occur or doubt that generates. These aren't theoretical concepts. These are operational tools that work because they address actual stabilization mechanics. First practice, evidence documentation. Daily record of how new prophecy is manifesting, every unexpected opportunity, every synchronistic connection, every accelerated manifestation, every relationship transformation. Write it down. Create external record that doubt cannot dismiss. When fear questions whether destiny shift is real, documented evidence proves trajectory actually reorganized. This practice creates stability through undeniable proof accumulation. Second practice, old pattern recognition. Identify when old consciousness tries to reassert, when limitation thinking returns, when previous prophecy attempts to pull you back, when familiar patterns try to reinstall. Call it out explicitly. That's old pattern. That's previous prophecy. That's limitation consciousness attempting to abort destiny rewrite. Explicit recognition neutralizes old pattern's power to destabilize new trajectory. Third practice, elevated frequency maintenance. Daily practice that sustains consciousness at level that triggered destiny rewrite. Meditation, contemplation, awareness exercises. Whatever raised frequency originally, continue doing it. This isn't optional. New prophecy requires elevated consciousness. Stop maintaining elevation, frequency drops. Frequency drops, prophecy reverts. Trajectory returns to previous limitation pattern. Daily practice prevents that collapse. Fourth practice, future vision clarity. Clear, specific vision of what new trajectory is generating, not vague hope. Precise, detailed vision of life new prophecy is organizing. Write it, speak it, feel it. This creates probability attractor, gives new destiny pattern clear target, helps quantum field organize circumstances matching elevated vision instead of allowing circumstances to drift toward old pattern default. Fifth practice, relationship boundary maintenance. Complete boundaries with old pattern consciousness. Don't try to maintain connections that require frequency suppression. Don't compromise elevated awareness to preserve familiar relationships. Don't lower consciousness to make others comfortable. Protect new prophecy absolutely. Old trajectory consciousness cannot be allowed to destabilize destiny, rewrite through social pressure or emotional manipulation. Sixth practice, rapid doubt dissolution. When doubt arises, dissolve it immediately. Don't let it accumulate. Don't allow it to build momentum. Address it instantly through evidence review, through frequency elevation practice, through explicit recognition that doubt is old pattern attempting to abort new trajectory. Fast response prevents doubt from destabilizing prophecy before new pattern fully stabilizes. Seventh practice, opportunity acceptance practice. When new prophecy generates opportunity, accept it, even if it seems impossible, even if you feel unprepared, even if fear questions readiness. New trajectory operates differently than old pattern. Generates opportunities matching elevated consciousness, not previous capacity. Accepting stretches you. Refusing limits new prophecy to old pattern parameters. Accept. Act. Expand into what new destiny is offering. Eighth practice. Subscribe to Quantum Revelation and turn on all notifications right now. Content coming through specifically supports consciousness navigating destiny rewrite, provides stability during transition, confirms prophecy shift is real, offers advanced trajectory mechanics. Without this anchor, you're stabilizing alone. With it, you have systematic support structure that prevents most common destabilization patterns that abort incomplete rewrites. This isn't optional for successful stabilization. Destiny rewrite creates vulnerability, creates doubt opportunities, creates old pattern reversion possibilities. 8 practices create immunity, create stability, create anchoring that ensures new prophecy remains active despite interference attempts from limitation consciousness attempting to restore familiar trajectory. Do it now. Subscribe. Notifications on. Then implement all 8 practices starting immediately. Not evaluating whether they seem necessary, just implementing. Because destiny rewrite window is limited, is specific period when new prophecy is establishing and old pattern is attempting to reassert. Practices must be implemented during window. Waiting until you feel ready means waiting until window closes and opportunity for stabilization passes. Most people experience destiny shift, then do nothing. They notice prophecy changing, They sense trajectory reorganizing. They feel destiny rewriting. But they don't implement practices, don't create stability structures, don't protect new pattern from old pattern interference. And within weeks, doubt destabilizes. Fear lowers frequency. Old consciousness reasserts. Prophecy reverts. Trajectory returns to previous limitation pattern. And destiny shift becomes memory of what almost happened instead of foundation for what actually manifests. Don't be that consciousness. You're experiencing actual quantum prophecy reorganization. You're in actual destiny rewrite window. You're in actual trajectory transformation period. Implement practices. Create stability. Protect elevated frequency. And anchor new prophecy so completely that old limitation pattern can never reassert regardless of circumstances or doubt that attempts to destabilize transformation you're experiencing right now. Here's what Destiny Rewrite reveals about consciousness-reality interface that changes everything about how you navigate transformation. Your prophecy responds to frequency in real time, not delayed. Not after you maintain elevated consciousness for months. Immediately. The moment frequency shifts significantly, quantum field recognizes elevation and begins trajectory reorganization. And that reorganization creates feedback loop. New prophecy generates circumstances matching elevated frequency. Circumstances confirm frequency shift is real. Confirmation strengthens elevated consciousness. Strengthened consciousness maintains frequency. Maintained frequency stabilizes new prophecy. Stabilized prophecy generates even more aligned circumstances, and cycle continues accelerating. Think about what this means practically. You don't wait for destiny to change. You don't work toward prophecy reorganization. You don't earn trajectory transformation. You raise frequency. Prophecy responds automatically. Trajectory begins shifting immediately. Destiny starts rewriting the moment consciousness elevates, not as reward for sustained effort, as automatic field response to frequency change, like tuning radio dial. Change frequency, different station becomes accessible instantly. No waiting, no earning, just immediate response to frequency shift. But here's what most people miss about this immediate responsiveness. It works both directions. Raise frequency, prophecy elevates. Lower frequency, prophecy reverts. Maintain elevated consciousness, new trajectory stabilizes. Drop back to previous consciousness, old trajectory reasserts. The field doesn't evaluate whether you deserve new prophecy or should return to old prophecy. It just responds to frequency you're broadcasting moment by moment. Elevate, trajectory transforms. Lower, trajectory returns. Simple quantum mechanics with no moral judgment involved. This is why stabilization practices matter so critically. Why frequency maintenance is non-negotiable. Why elevated consciousness must become default instead of temporary state. Because destiny rewrite isn't permanent until frequency elevation is permanent. Prophecy shift isn't stable until consciousness transformation is stable. Trajectory change isn't complete until awareness expansion is complete. Temporary elevation creates temporary rewrite. Permanent elevation creates permanent transformation. And here's what makes this recognition powerful. It puts complete control in your consciousness. Not external control, not circumstantial control. Consciousness control. You determine destiny trajectory through frequency you maintain. You control prophecy pattern through consciousness you embody. You direct life path through awareness you stabilize. Not through effort, through being. Through maintaining elevated frequency that automatically generates elevated trajectory that automatically manifests elevated destiny. But most consciousness doesn't recognize this power, doesn't understand they control destiny through frequency, doesn't realize prophecy responds to consciousness in real time. So they wait for destiny to change, hope for trajectory to shift, wish for prophecy to transform, while broadcasting unchanged frequency that generates unchanged pattern that manifests unchanged circumstances. And they wonder why nothing changes despite hoping intensely, despite wishing fervently, despite waiting desperately. You're different. You're here, which means you recognize consciousness-reality connection that most people miss. You understand frequency determines manifestation. You comprehend that elevated awareness generates elevated trajectory automatically. You're not waiting for destiny to change. You're recognizing destiny is changing right now in response to frequency elevation you achieved. That recognition is what separates consciousness who stabilize destiny, rewrite from those who experience temporary shift, then collapse back to previous pattern. And here's what you need to understand about this recognition period. Its window. Its specific time frame when prophecy reorganization is accessible for stabilization. Right now, your quantum field is in reorganization state. Trajectory is fluid. Destiny is malleable. Pattern is transforming. This fluid state won't last indefinitely. Within specific period, usually 60 to 90 days, depending on how dramatically consciousness shifted, prophecy will stabilize. Will lock into whatever pattern frequency is generating during stabilization window. If you maintain elevated frequency throughout window, new prophecy stabilizes. New trajectory becomes default. New destiny pattern locks in as permanent life path generator. But if frequency wavers, if consciousness drops, if awareness contracts during window, old prophecy can reassert. Old trajectory can return. Old destiny pattern can lock back in as if shift never occurred. Same stabilization window determines whether transformation becomes permanent or temporary, whether rewrite completes or aborts, whether elevation maintains or collapses. You're in that window right now, this moment, this day, this period. Your quantum prophecy is reorganizing in response to frequency shift you achieved. And what happens during next 60 to 90 days determines whether new trajectory becomes your permanent life path or whether old pattern reasserts and you continue following limitation-based destiny your previous consciousness was generating. That's the stakes. That's the opportunity. That's what this recognition moment provides. Complete destiny transformation available right now through maintaining elevated frequency that triggered prophecy reorganization you're currently experiencing. Here's what your entire past reveals when viewed through destiny rewrite lens. Every challenge you faced was frequency development. Every pattern you released was consciousness elevation. Every threshold you crossed was preparation for prophecy shift occurring right now. Your life wasn't random struggle, wasn't meaningless suffering, wasn't evidence of failure or unworthiness. Was systematic preparation orchestrated by quantum field to develop consciousness capacity that triggers automatic destiny reorganization when developed sufficiently. Think about your last 3 years specifically. What were your biggest challenges? What patterns kept repeating until you finally transcended them? What thresholds seemed impossible until you crossed them? What consciousness shifts felt painful until they completed? All of that was building frequency. All of that was elevating awareness. All of that was preparing you for this exact moment when quantum prophecy recognizes elevation is sufficient and initiates complete trajectory transformation. Every difficult experience developed specific frequency capacity. Every painful pattern dissolution raised consciousness level. Every threshold crossing expanded awareness parameters. None of it was punishment. None of it was random. None of it was evidence you were failing. All of it was preparation. All of it was development. All of it was orchestration toward destiny rewrite moment you're experiencing right now. And here's what makes this recognition transformational. It dissolves victim consciousness completely. When you see your past as systematic preparation for prophecy shift, you cannot maintain "life happened to me" interpretation. Cannot sustain resentment about challenges that developed frequency-triggering trajectory transformation. Cannot feel victimized by experiences that prepared you for destiny upgrade most consciousness never accesses. Your past reorganizes from struggle to training, from suffering to preparation, from chaos to precision development pathway. That reorganization releases tremendous energy trapped in resentment, energy locked in victimhood, energy frozen in why me questioning. All of it becomes available when you recognize everything that happened served preparation for prophecy reorganization occurring right now. Everything painful developed frequency required for trajectory transformation. Everything difficult was exactly what was needed for consciousness to elevate sufficiently that automatic destiny rewrite would occur. And here's what this reveals about your future. It's completely open, completely undetermined, completely generated by frequency you maintain from this moment forward. Old prophecy had specific trajectory, predicted future based on unchanged consciousness, generated circumstances matching limitation pattern. But old prophecy is dissolving. New prophecy is forming, and new prophecy has completely different trajectory, generates completely different future, creates completely different destiny based on elevated consciousness instead of limited awareness. This means your future is not extension of your past, is not continuation of previous patterns, is not repetition of historical limitations. Your future is expression of elevated frequency, is manifestation of transformed consciousness, is generation of new prophecy organized around awareness that developed beyond previous capacity. Everything changes from this point forward because underlying pattern-generating experience changed from limitation-based to possibility-based organization. Most people experience time as linear causation. Past determines present determines future in predictable sequence. They're trapped in trajectory, their historical consciousness established. Bound by prophecy, their unchanged awareness maintains, destined to repeat patterns their consistent frequency generates. But consciousness experiencing destiny rewrite experiences time completely differently. Past was preparation, present is transformation, future is elevated manifestation. No linear causation, just frequency-based reality generation where consciousness determines trajectory and trajectory determines experience. That's liberation. That's what prophecy shift provides. That's what destiny rewrite creates. Complete freedom from past determining future. Complete release from historical patterns continuing. Complete opening to possibility that elevated consciousness generates rather than limitation that previous awareness maintained. Not theoretical freedom. Actual operational liberation that manifests as completely different life circumstances emerging from completely different trajectory generated by completely different prophecy organized around completely different frequency. You're experiencing that liberation right now. Your past prepared you. Your present is transforming you. Your future is opening before you, not as fixed path, not as determined trajectory, not as predictable prophecy, as infinite possibility organized moment by frequency you maintain, as malleable field responding continuously to consciousness you embody, as destiny being written in real time by awareness you stabilize. That's what quantum prophecy reorganization creates. That's what trajectory transformation provides. That's what happens when consciousness elevates sufficiently that automatic destiny rewrite occurs in response to frequency development you achieved through everything you experienced across your entire life, leading to this exact transformation moment. Every fear you have about destiny rewrite is old prophecy attempting to abort new trajectory. Let me be absolutely direct. The part of you that's terrified of destiny transformation is the part that must dissolve for transformation to complete. And that dissolution is not optional, is not negotiable, is inevitable result of prophecy reorganization you're experiencing. The question is whether you allow dissolution consciously or resist it unconsciously, while destiny rewrites anyway, despite resistance creating unnecessary suffering. You weren't meant to maintain old consciousness and add new destiny on top. You were meant to transcend old consciousness and generate new destiny through elevated awareness. Old prophecy dissolving, old trajectory ending, old patterns completing. And during that dissolution, fear generates maximum intensity, not as sign something's wrong. As sign that identity transformation is occurring exactly as quantum mechanics requires when frequency shifts beyond previous consciousness capacity. Think about what you're afraid of. Afraid destiny rewrite means losing yourself. Afraid trajectory transformation means becoming unrecognizable. Afraid prophecy shift means abandoning everything familiar. Afraid new pattern means failure is possible, whereas old pattern felt safe through familiarity. All valid fears, all pointing to real truth. Destiny rewrite does transform identity, does create unrecognizability, does require releasing familiar patterns, does open possibility of outcomes you couldn't predict from old consciousness. But what fear interprets as danger is actually expansion. You're not losing yourself. You're discovering what you actually are beyond limited identity old prophecy maintained. You're not becoming unrecognizable. You're becoming recognizable as who you're capable of being when not constrained by limitation-based trajectory. You're not abandoning everything. You're releasing what never actually served except to maintain comfortable familiarity. You're not opening to failure. You're opening to possibilities that old consciousness couldn't access because it operated below frequency where those possibilities become available. Once you see that, once you recognize fear as old prophecy's resistance to necessary dissolution, fear loses power to abort transformation. Because you realize fear confirms shift is real. Terror proves old pattern recognizes it's being replaced. Doubt demonstrates that limitation-based consciousness is fighting to maintain control despite frequency elevation making old trajectory impossible to sustain. Every fear is evidence that destiny rewrite is actual quantum reorganization rather than hopeful imagination. That prophecy shift is occurring at field level rather than remaining conceptual possibility. That transformation is inevitable because frequency already crossed threshold that triggers automatic trajectory reorganization. You don't have to eliminate fear to complete destiny rewrite. You have to allow rewrite despite fear. Have to maintain elevated frequency while terror screams to lower it. Have to sustain transformed consciousness while doubt questions its validity. Have to continue embodying elevated awareness while old identity clings desperately to familiar limitation. That's transformation challenge. That's prophecy reorganization requirement. That's what separates consciousness who stabilize destiny rewrite from those who abort transformation through fear-based collapse back to previous pattern. And here's what makes fear most deceptive during prophecy shift. It presents as wisdom, as reasonable caution, as healthy skepticism. Maybe I'm moving too fast. Maybe I should be more realistic. Maybe this destiny upgrade is just fantasy. All of it sounds balanced, sounds grounded, sounds like appropriate self-protection. But it's old prophecy generating rationalization for aborting new trajectory, creating justification for returning to limitation pattern, manufacturing reasons to collapse frequency back to previous level where old destiny could reassert. And if you believe fear's rationalization, if you let old prophecy convince you that limitation is safety, transformation aborts. Frequency drops back to previous level. Consciousness returns to historical pattern. Awareness contracts to familiar limitation. And destiny reverts to old trajectory that unchanged consciousness generates. New prophecy dissolves. New trajectory disappears. new possibility closes, and you're back to following same limitation-based destiny you were following before. Frequency briefly elevated enough to trigger reorganization that fear prevented from stabilizing. But if you recognize fear as old patterns' death mechanism, if you understand terror as necessary component of transformation, if you maintain elevation despite every rationalization, destiny rewrite completes. Old prophecy fully dissolves. New trajectory fully stabilizes. New destiny pattern fully locks in. And you operate permanently from elevated consciousness, generating elevated circumstances through elevated trajectory that limitation-based awareness could never access. And from that completed transformation state, fear becomes irrelevant. Because when you experience direct evidence that new prophecy generates better circumstances, when manifestation proves elevated trajectory, creates superior outcomes, when life demonstrates that transformed destiny serves evolution, that old pattern suppressed, you can never believe fear's warnings again. You'll feel fear. You'll notice old pattern attempting to reassert. But you won't let either destabilize transformation you completed, won't let either collapse frequency you elevated, won't let either abort destiny rewrite you achieved. That's permanent stabilization. That's irreversible transformation. That's what prophecy reorganization creates when consciousness maintains elevation through fear period instead of collapsing back to limitation when terror peaks. There's one aspect of destiny rewrite that reveals more than any practice or marker, and its clearest signal that prophecy reorganization is completing and new trajectory is stabilizing permanently. The silence. Complete internal silence that appears as destiny shifts. Total dissolution of mental narrative into pure awareness, operating directly from elevated consciousness that new prophecy requires. If you've been experiencing this since recognizing destiny shift, if moments of complete mental quiet have been increasing as transformation progresses, if internal chatter that used to dominate awareness is naturally dissolving, that's not losing mental function. That's accessing prophecy-level consciousness. That's operating from awareness that interfaces with quantum field directly to generate trajectory without thought-based limitation creating interference. Think about how old prophecy operated. Through mental narrative, through thought-based planning, through mind constantly generating strategies and evaluations and interpretations. All that mental activity was how old consciousness tried to control destiny, tried to direct trajectory, tried to manage prophecy through thinking. But thinking creates limitation, creates constraint based on what mind can imagine, creates boundaries around possibility based on past experience and logical extrapolation. But new prophecy doesn't operate through thinking, operates through being. Through consciousness, maintaining elevated frequency without mental mediation. Through awareness, interfacing with quantum field without thought layer creating restriction. From silence, prophecy generates optimal trajectory, organizes perfect synchronicities, creates ideal manifestations, all operating beyond what thinking could strategize or mind could plan. Silence allows quantum intelligence to organize destiny perfectly without mental limitation constraining possibility. This is why silence increasing confirms destiny rewrite completion. Why mental quiet proves new prophecy stabilizing. Why thought dissolution demonstrates elevated consciousness becoming default operational state. Old prophecy required mental activity to maintain, required thinking to direct, required planning to control. But new prophecy requires silence, requires being, requires consciousness resting in elevated frequency without mental interference, limiting what quantum field can organize. And here's what makes this critical for permanent stabilization. Mental narrative is what doubt uses, is what fear operates through, is what old prophecy attempts to reactivate in. Without mental narrative, doubt cannot generate questioning. Without thinking, fear cannot create terror. Without thought-based interpretation, old pattern cannot convince you that limitation is safety and transformation is danger. Silence creates immunity that thinking cannot achieve. This means silence increasing is most reliable indicator that transformation is permanent, that prophecy shift is irreversible, that destiny rewrite is complete. Because without mental activity creating vulnerability, old pattern has no mechanism to destabilize new trajectory, has no pathway to abort prophecy reorganization, has no interface to collapse frequency back to limitation level. You're operating from consciousness state that old prophecy cannot access. From awareness, it cannot suppress. From silence, it cannot fill with limiting narrative that would lower frequency and revert trajectory. Trust silence absolutely, especially during transformation period. When mental narrative tries to reactivate, recognize it as old prophecy attempting to abort new trajectory. When internal voice tries to generate doubt, identify it as a limitation pattern trying to prevent destiny completion. When thought-based interpretation tries to constrain possibility, see it as old consciousness trying to reimpose familiar boundaries. And return to silence. Return to pure, elevated awareness. Return to consciousness maintaining frequency that new prophecy requires without mental mediation limiting what quantum field is organizing. That return is what completes transformation, what stabilizes destiny permanently, what anchors new prophecy irreversibly. Silence is not loss, is presence. Pure consciousness presence, maintaining elevated frequency that generates elevated trajectory, that manifests elevated destiny without mental limitation, constraining quantum field's optimal organization. That's completion state. That's permanent stabilization. That's destiny rewrite, becoming irreversible transformation that no doubt, fear, or old pattern can destabilize, regardless of circumstances or challenges that occur. You need specific daily practice that completes destiny rewrite and maintains new prophecy permanently, something beyond intellectual understanding, beyond conceptual recognition, something that creates actual quantum field stabilization. I'm going to give you exact ritual I implement daily to maintain permanent prophecy elevation and trajectory transformation. Follow this precisely starting immediately. Every morning, first 30 minutes after waking. Non-negotiable destiny maintenance time. Turn off all devices, sit comfortably with spine straight, close eyes, 5 deep breaths, then settle into natural breathing and begin protocol. Start with prophecy recognition statement. Speak out loud. I recognize my quantum prophecy reorganized, my destiny trajectory transformed, my consciousness elevated beyond previous limitation. I maintain frequency that generates new pattern. I embody awareness that manifests elevated destiny. I am operating permanently from rewritten prophecy, and so it is. Field statement: activate your field. Notice where expansion occurs and where resistance remains. Both are information about stabilization progress. After recognition statement, practice elevated frequency embodiment. For 15 minutes, consciously maintain highest consciousness state you can access. Not thinking about elevation, actually being elevated. Feel what it feels like to operate as consciousness that generates optimal trajectory. Sense what awareness feels like that manifests perfect destiny. Embody frequency that attracts ideal circumstances. This isn't visualization. This is actual frequency maintenance. You're practicing being the consciousness that new prophecy requires to remain stable. During those 15 minutes, you might notice old patterns attempting to pull you down. Old consciousness trying to reassert. Previous frequency trying to reactivate. Don't fight it. Don't resist it. Just recognize it and return to elevation. Each return strengthens new prophecy. Each recognition dissolves old pattern. Each elevation maintenance stabilizes transformed trajectory. After 15 minutes elevation practice, set prophecy intention. Speak clearly what new trajectory is generating. My quantum prophecy manifests specific vision of elevated destiny. Circumstances organize optimally. Synchronicities appear perfectly. Resources flow abundantly. Relationships align, frequency matched. Challenges serve evolution. Everything generated by elevated consciousness expressing through rewritten destiny pattern. And so it is. Then release intention completely. Don't hold it. Don't think about it. Don't try to make it happen. Trust new prophecy to organize manifestation. Trust elevated frequency to generate trajectory. Trust transformed consciousness to create destiny. Silence for remaining 10 minutes. Pure awareness resting in elevated state. Allowing quantum field to organize without mental interference, limiting possibility. Complete practice with stabilization commitment. I commit to maintaining elevated frequency throughout this day. I commit to embodying transformed consciousness continuously. I commit to allowing new prophecy to generate optimal trajectory. I commit to permanent destiny stabilization. And so it is. Open eyes. Begin day operating from rewritten prophecy instead of old limitation pattern. That's the ritual. 30 minutes daily. Every morning without exception for minimum 90 consecutive days. That's complete stabilization timeline. 90 days of daily practice creates permanent transformation, creates irreversible prophecy shift, creates destiny rewrite that cannot revert regardless of circumstances or doubt that occurs. Most consciousness experiencing destiny shift skip daily practice. Think transformation is permanent without maintenance. And prophecy reverts within weeks because they didn't create behavioral stabilization that prevents frequency drop, that allows old trajectory to reassert. Don't make that error. Implement ritual starting tomorrow morning. Maintain for 90 consecutive days minimum. That's how temporary shift becomes permanent transformation. How initial recognition becomes irreversible stabilization. How destiny rewrite becomes locked-in trajectory that generates continuously elevated circumstances regardless of what happens. And now drop final comment. I commit to 90-day destiny stabilization ritual starting tomorrow. Public commitment creates accountability, creates quantum activation through witness declaration, creates collective support. We're transforming collectively. Every consciousness that commits to daily practice strengthens new prophecy for everyone. Your commitment serves not just your destiny, but collective elevation. Make it now. Make it witnessed. Make it permanent. Here's what happens over next 90 days and why this period determines whether destiny rewrite becomes permanent or temporary. Your quantum prophecy reorganized, your trajectory shifted, your destiny is being rewritten right now. But reorganization and stabilization are different. Shift and permanence are different. Initial transformation and irreversible completion are different. Gap between them is where most consciousness lose transformation they achieved, where prophecy reverts, where trajectory returns to previous limitation pattern. If you stabilize during 90 days, if you implement daily ritual consistently, if you maintain elevated frequency despite challenges, destiny rewrite becomes permanent. Prophecy locks into new pattern irreversibly. Trajectory generates from elevated consciousness continuously. And your life path transforms completely from what it was going to be into what elevated awareness is now capable of manifesting. Not temporarily. Permanently, not conditionally, absolutely, not partially, completely. But if you don't stabilize, if you skip daily practice, if you let frequency drop back to previous level, prophecy reverts, trajectory returns to old pattern, destiny shift aborts, and you continue following same limitation-based path you were on before transformation briefly became available. And you carry knowing you had destiny rewrite opportunity and lost it. accessed elevated trajectory, and returned to limitation. Experienced prophecy shift and allowed it to collapse. That knowing becomes constant reminder of transformation that almost completed but didn't because stabilization wasn't maintained. Don't let that be your story. Don't let destiny rewrite become memory of what almost happened. Don't lose transformation you're experiencing right now. Stabilize, complete, anchor, through systematic daily practice, through sustained frequency elevation, through absolute commitment to 90-day protocol that creates permanent prophecy stabilization. Here's what you must do before this transmission ends. 3 final commitments that seal destiny rewrite and ensure transformation completes. First commitment: implement daily ritual starting tomorrow morning. 30 minutes every day. 90 consecutive days. No exceptions. This is non-negotiable for permanent stabilization. This is how temporary shift becomes irreversible transformation. This is survival protocol for rewritten destiny. Commit completely. Begin immediately. Maintain absolutely. Second commitment: subscribe to Quantum Revelation and turn on all notifications. Content coming through next 90 days specifically supports destiny stabilization, provides daily confirmation, offers advanced prophecy mechanics, creates community with others experiencing transformation. Without this anchor, you're stabilizing alone. With it, you have systematic support structure preventing most common destabilization patterns. Third commitment: share this transmission with one person you recognize is ready for destiny rewrite. Someone whose frequency is elevating, someone whose consciousness is transforming, someone whose awareness is expanding toward prophecy shift threshold. Send them link. No explanation. If they're ready, transformation activates. If they're not, they dismiss. Either way, you fulfilled function. Those 3 commitments complete stabilization protocol, seal destiny rewrite, ensure prophecy. Transformation becomes permanent. Consciousness that makes all 3 stabilizes completely. Consciousness that makes none reverts to previous pattern. Same transformation opportunity. Completely different outcomes based on commitment to daily practice that maintains elevation. Your quantum prophecy shifted. Your destiny trajectory reorganized. Your life path is being rewritten right now. Everything you experienced across your entire life prepared you for this transformation moment. Every challenge developed frequency. Every threshold elevated consciousness. Every pattern dissolution expanded awareness. All of it building toward prophecy reorganization occurring right now. Don't waste preparation. Don't abort transformation. Don't lose destiny rewrite. Stabilize it, complete it, anchor it, through daily ritual, through sustained elevation, through 90-day commitment, and emerge permanently transformed. Operating from elevated prophecy, generating from new trajectory, manifesting from rewritten destiny, not temporarily, permanently, not partially, completely, not conditionally, absolutely. The quantum field delivered this transmission at exact moment you needed it. At precise point when destiny rewrite is accessible. At perfect timing when transformation can stabilize, not coincidence. Quantum mechanics. Field organizing information delivery to consciousness ready to receive and implement stabilization protocol that makes temporary shift permanent transformation. You're ready. You crossed threshold, your prophecy reorganized. Now complete what began, stabilize what shifted, anchor what transformed. Your destiny is being rewritten right now. Make it permanent, make it complete, make it irreversible. Through commitment, through practice, through absolute refusal to let frequency drop back to limitation level where old prophecy could reassert. 90 days from now, you'll be living completely different destiny than you would have lived without this transformation. Different opportunities, different relationships, different circumstances, different trajectory, different prophecy, different everything. Because quantum field reorganized around elevated consciousness and destiny rewritten became permanent reality instead of temporary possibility that collapsed. That's available. That's accessible. That's what this moment provides. Complete destiny transformation. Total prophecy reorganization. Absolute trajectory shift. From limitation-based pattern to possibility-based generation. From unconscious repetition to conscious creation. From predetermined path to elevated manifestation. All of it available right now through maintaining frequency that triggered reorganization you're experiencing. Welcome to permanent transformation. Welcome to irreversible prophecy shift. Welcome to completed destiny rewrite. Your quantum prophecy reorganized, your trajectory transformed, your destiny is being rewritten right now. Make it permanent, make it complete, make it everything elevated consciousness is capable of manifesting. And so it is.